And I mentioned educational trauma to teachers, saying, hey, when you call a kid's parent and they immediately are not believing you, I want you to go back and think about what happened to them.
Right.
Because it probably was not a positive situation, and your phone call triggered not necessarily something that their kid did, but something that happened to them that was unresolved. And I don't think we talk about that enough when we talk about the lack of parent support, the lack of parent engagement. Are you going to go somewhere that doesn't give you good feelings or happy memories?
No.
Okay, so most parents aren't either.
Right. And that's all it does for them.
Yes, it triggers these bad experiences. Well, what has education done for me?
Yeah.
We've been in public housing and I'm still here. And then it becomes this mindset. So why would I go back?
Hey, what's your problem? You have business problems? We have business solutions.
Yeah.
Well, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Life is a fight.
It is.
In business, every day is a fight.
Always.
So, hey, what's your problem?
Yes, as always, thank you, John David Wells, for the big voice for the show, presenting it and getting it out there into the podcast sphere, if that's even a word. This is the What's Your Problem podcast, where we talk to Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals about the one thing and other things. But mainly that one thing that kind of keeps them up at night, because there's always something. It's the impetus of this podcast. Somebody told me one time, it's always something. And it's like a weight lifted off my shoulder. It was incredible. Once you realize it and you acknowledge it and just accept it, it's just fine. This is a video and an audio podcast. If you like, you can pick your poison at whatsyourproblempodcast.com. And of course, I always mention this is the year where we're having a goal of 10,000 average downloads per episode. I will admit we are a long way off, but hey, we put it out there. So if you like what you hear and you like our guests, and if you want to be a guest, or if you know somebody that should be a guest, send them our way. whatsyourproblempodcast.com. I am your host, Jim McCarthy, with JimMcCarthyVoiceovers.com and It'sYourShow.co. If you want a podcast like this one, check us out, It'sYourShow.co. That's what we do. From voicing podcast intros to producing them soup to nuts. Check it out. And today, occasionally I produce a lot of podcasts for other people. And sometimes they get some guests that are just utterly amazing. And this woman is no exception. Her name is Mrs. Erica Battle. Thank you for being on with us today.
Thank you.
You were on the Stronger Than My Father podcast with a great buddy of mine, Marcus Meneese, not too long ago. And you just brought the fire. My goodness. Like a lot of good wisdom nuggets and, micro content came out of that episode because you're passionate about what you do, and it's good.
I am very, very passionate about education for more than one reason.
Absolutely. Education is a lifelong thing.
Yeah.
That in itself has got to be taught, in my opinion. But of course, as we start things off, we always do the dad joke challenge to kind of get the fun going. A little bit of energy. And it's also sponsored because that's what we do here. So the Dad Joke Challenge is brought to you by Mr. Ed Fox and Trade Bank of Nashville. If you're a business that, products or services, you want to tap into an alternate economy, trade is kind of the way to go. Maybe some things are slow. Maybe some products are languishing on the shelves in your place of business. And, what if you could pay for services to your business, or even for, maybe date night, a restaurant or something like that, for pennies on the dollar? Because that's basically what you're doing with Trade Bank by trading your services. Something to look into. You also get the benefit of networking with the other businesses in Trade Bank. Check it out. All the details are in the description. Mr. Ed Fox also does the jokes for us, because he's a dad joke aficionado. And we'll get started. There are 5 of them. No more, no less.
Okay.
Here we go.
What do pigs put on their cuts? Ointment.
Ointment.
Okay, that was good.
That was good. Do you have kids?
I do.
Yeah. So
28, 24, and 20.
They like dad jokes, right? Does your husband tell them dad jokes?
He tries.
He tries? They just roll their eyes, right? Number 2.
Did you hear about the fire at the circus? It was intense.
Okay. I had to think about that one. Okay.
Intense. Okay. Yes. Here we go. 3.
Man, 2 silkworms had a race. Ended up a tie.
Okay, that's
They're
cute.
silkworms.
Yeah, that's cute.
That's not bad, not bad. See, we're fun here.
What do you get if you divide the circumference of a pumpkin by its diameter? Why, pumpkin pie, of course.
I saw that coming a mile away.
Okay, I didn't.
No?
No.
I was thinking it has to do with pie. No. And final one, I promise. Here we go.
Hey, what did one snowman say to the other? Do you smell carrots?
That's cute.
Not bad. That was a good...
You're also asking the woman who did not laugh at cartoons as a kid.
Right. Well, what kind of cartoons did you watch?
My favorite of all times was Garfield.
Garfield was a fun one.
Yeah, I laughed at Garfield.
Was it the weekly episodic version or like the holiday specials that he's got?
No, like on the weekends, on Saturdays. You know,
Okay.
this is when TV cut off and gave you the Star Spangled Banner and Static.
Gosh, you're taking me back. That doesn't happen anymore.
It does not happen
Right.
at all.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it doesn't happen at all.
I forgot that it did happen.
Yeah.
TV stations used to sign off.
Yes, sign off.
Yeah.
Until the next morning.
That's right.
And so you were excited the next morning when they came back on.
Mine was, I used to come home after school and watch Heathcliff and, gosh, what was that other show? It was both with cats, obviously.
I do remember Heathcliff.
Yeah, Heathcliff and...
Tom and Jerry?
That wasn't Tom and Jerry was one of them for sure. But I'll have to think of it. It's going to come to mind. They ran back to back. And they were almost like part of the same universe, but they stayed separate. I don't know. But there you go. The Dad Joke Challenge brought to you by Ed Fox and Trade Bank. Again, all the details are in the description if you want to see what that's all about. Ed's just a good guy to sit down and have a coffee with, so I just recommend that.
Okay.
That's something you should do as well. So getting into it, you were intriguing because, you know, there's only very few times that I get in front of somebody and go, oh my gosh, I gotta invite them on. Okay, so for what it's worth, that's why you're here.
Okay, thank you.
It was your passion that, you know, came out of you. I mean, Marcus was like it was like pulling a string and you just went off. And it was really very informative and truthful, very honest. And a lot of stuff that you were talking about made a lot of sense, you know? So a lot of your background, and correct me if I'm wrong, has to do with the education of our kids. And you're going into schools, helping with their culture, how to relate to each other and the staff and stuff like that. Essentially seeing and navigating their own bottle because they're inside of it. You are actually seeing the outside of their bottle, correct?
Yes. So I like to describe what I do as I am a outside perspective of what you see every day. So it's like, you know how, like if you're cleaning up and you're sweeping the floor and you sweep up a pile of dust and then you get distracted and you forget the dust is there and you just keep walking past the dust. But then I come in the house and the first thing I say is,
pick up the dust.
Why haven't you picked that up? And you're like,
That's
I
right.
forgot that
That's
was even
what I was doing.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's how I am for schools, because things happen. And they know they need to address them. Then something else happens. Yeah. So they forget to address the first thing. And then things continue to compound. So then I'm coming in asking, well, why haven't we addressed this? Well, when are you going to address this? And it's just like, oh, well, I guess we should address that. So that's what I am. I'm a neutral set of eyes. I don't place judgment. I'm getting you to look past the everyday fires and get to the root of some of your issues.
So schools are not unlike me, where I'm going along through life and I've already got 10 or 12 tabs open, so to speak. And eventually I'm like, okay, I've got 25 tabs open. What did I do with the first 5?
Correct.
So so schools are similar to my problem in life.
That's their problem.
Yeah. What are the
compound.
typical problems that they have? That they all kind of run along the same lines?
Beyond shortage of staff, right? Because that within itself causes another array of problems because now you're trying to figure out how do we teach the kids that we have without all the people that we need, right? So then you have those that's just something that, I think as a country, we're facing shortage of employees. Yeah. That's number one. But then you think about things, again, we said the TV turned off when we were in school, the TV never turns off now. So technology, although it is a plus, I also see it as something that also causes issues as well, because you have the cyberbullying that's going on. Kids are on their technology wee hours of the night. They don't turn it off. So when they come to school, they're not totally engaged. They're tired. They're not focused on what's going on. Then you have second career educators who are not traditionally trained to handle some of the additional issues beyond the content in school. Then you have the community wanting us to do one thing, parents wanting to see another, politicians talking about something else. So it's all of these things compounded. Then the kids trying to figure out what is even the value of why I'm coming here every day. Right. So you think about all of those things. It's a variety of issues. Some, we have some issues that are pretty consistent among schools, period. But then schools are different. I was telling you. So I could go in and help one school with a issue as it relates to relating and making the content relevant. And then I need to go into another school and just talk about the trauma that their student population experiences and how do we teach kids when they are in high need areas. Two different issues.
You did bring that up, the educational trauma as a concept.
Yes.
And that was so intriguing, and I've never heard anybody define it.
Okay.
Because, everybody knows what it was like I remember going through something like that. Describe what that is.
So when I think about educational trauma, I go back because I talk about equity. So I have to kind of go back a little bit. And when I started just kind of deep diving on equitable practices and what does equity look like within a school system, I had to go back to when schools were being integrated. And we have to recognize that was like 70 years ago. That's not a long time ago.
Right.
That's how old my mom is.
Yeah.
Okay. And when schools were being integrated, they were only being integrated 2 kids here, 3 kids here. And then finally, the government was like, listen, we have to integrate these schools.
Yeah.
And so what happened was when we started integrating, we took Black students, African-American students from their area, brought them to other schools where white children were. And that, then you started seeing parents, start these independent schools and, so they could still have their space. But what they did not integrate were the teachers. So you had communities of professionals lose their job, but then you had communities of students lose their culture.
Right.
And then you had schools that didn't even want them there, but that was requiring them to be there.
Right.
So you think about the type of education that they received and how beneficial it has been. So when you look at generations of families in like the public housing or in poverty, go back a few generations to see what the education looked like. Because a lot of times that education that was provided for them didn't meet their needs in order to get out of that situation. And so, when and I mentioned educational trauma to teachers, saying, hey, when you call a kid's parent and they immediately are not believing you, I want you to go back and think about what happened to them.
Right.
Because it probably was not a positive situation, and your phone call triggered not necessarily something that their kid did, but something that happened to them that was unresolved. And I don't think we talk about that enough when we talk about the lack of parent support, the lack of parent engagement. Are you going to go somewhere that doesn't give you good feelings or happy memories?
No.
Okay, so most parents aren't either.
Right. And that's all it does for them.
Yes, it triggers these bad experiences. Well, what has education done for me?
Yeah.
We've been in public housing and I'm still here. And then it becomes this mindset. So why would I go back? And why would I believe you?
Yeah.
Because the same teachers that my kids have They said things to my parents that were not true, and I know they were not true. So why should I believe you? Yeah. That's why building relationships among all stakeholders is critical. It's important.
I related to that concept only in the sense that I was told, and maybe this is a very, surface level trauma, but I was told, in high school that, if you didn't go to college, that was it. You were going to not succeed in life. And I didn't realize how damaging it was up until later in life, because everybody, and that was the mindset back then, was you just go to college or you go, God forbid, to trade school, clutch my pearls.
Right.
Literally that was the attitude where I went to high school.
That's not surface. That's the truth.
But it's the truth. But it's not because I was, my skin color had nothing to do with it. It was just my stupidity.
But honestly, Jim, what? Here's the thing.
Yeah.
There are also white Americans who have experienced educational trauma too. But here's the thing. Some conversations doesn't fit the narrative.
Right.
And so we don't bring them up. But you think about families who are in rural America who have not been able to get out of rural America one way or another.
Right.
And so I tell people this often. If I were to take away identifying demographic information and put urban data next to rural data, very similar.
Yeah.
Very similar. So it really knows no color.
Right.
It really doesn't. And so, it's just not something that we talk about enough. And I don't know, maybe it's not a sexy enough conversation.
But I'm wondering, is it, even, does it take a different shape even today? The educational trauma, like a lot of it, I encourage my kids to know who they are. I said, my biggest thing for you to know by the time you get to college age, if you don't know why you're going and you take out a loan, no, we're not doing that. If you get a free ride or close to it, then fine. And if you still don't know why you're going, that's okay. At least the bill's being paid. Keep your grades up. Go for a communications degree. My daughter is seeking out colleges now. She's huge into music. I said, fine, go for a music major. Have fun with it. All right. At least you're going to come out with a degree.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't have one. I made it work. Trust me, you can too.
Yeah.
That's the message. I want you to know who you are. And I think a lot of that, the pressure upon us when we were kids, know who you are at 18, make the decision now.
Right.
You have to, declare a major. You have to know what you're going to do oh my gosh.
Which is crazy.
Right.
I don't even know what I'm putting on tomorrow.
Right. But who's to say that in 20, 30 years that our kids don't turn around? My dad told me to, know who I am, and he should have given me more direction.
No, that's part of the problem now. So I was reading a book. So for pleasure, I read research. Okay, I'm a nerd. Okay,
that's okay. That's your thing. That's why you're good.
That is my thing.
Right.
So I was reading this book, and they had asked middle, elementary, and high school students, what do they need?
Right.
And the high school students, a lot of times, their response was more guidance and a more open and honest conversation about life.
Right.
We don't guide them enough. And I say this all the time. We do a lot of doting on elementary kids. And then when they get in middle school, our hands become hands off a little bit. High school, we don't put any hands on them. And then we wonder why kids make the stupidest decisions. Right. Because we take our hands off of them and think that they should make smart decisions. But no one is guiding those decisions. And then when they get in trouble and they face consequences, parents are not understanding why. Why are you talking to them like this? Why are they in trouble for that? But then they didn't provide any guidance one way or the other.
Yeah.
And so I think part of, and it can be a little traumatic, honestly. And I think part of what you're saying is right. We've pushed college so much, and that's why we have a ton of debt. I have some too. Yeah. Without telling kids, like, listen, if you get a trade, you could make more than half the,
Amen. Welders.
HVAC, electricians, plumbing. It's things that I'm going to always need that I'm not going to do. Okay.
Right.
If my air breaks tomorrow, I'm calling somebody.
That's right.
Well, so I was explaining to you earlier off camera that I have been getting contacted about helping organizations with workforce development with our school age kids and I said I wasn't going to talk about this, didn't I? And here I am.
It's all right. We can touch upon it. That's fine.
I wasn't going to talk about this, but I just came right on out. But it was because I was talking to a gentleman who he has an HVAC company, very successful, and he decided to give back. And so he does some things within the school system. And one of the things that he had mentioned to me was two things. One, his kids that he mentors, they can't read well.
Really?
And number two, they don't have job skills. And he had, he just given me a scenario that this summer he had a young lady who had a job offer, but could not fill out the job application to take the offer.
Really?
Yeah. So what has she been doing in school? And she's about to graduate. Like, she's a junior in high school.
Oh, wow.
And could not read well enough so she was a junior last year. So this year she's a senior. Mm-hmm. Could not read well enough to fill out a job application.
Wow. I had no idea that was happening.
Oh my God. Listen.
Yeah. I was thinking basic skills, able to take direction and stuff like that and, absorb a skill like a plumbing or, electrician.
Well, I can't absorb it if I can't read about it.
Right.
So, listen. So I got into education by chance. Like, I wanted to be like you. I wanted to be a broadcast journalist. Okay? I wanted
not all it's cracked up to be.
Listen, I interned in the newsroom and I was like, immediately no.
There's a lot going on, man.
Oh my God.
Yep.
No one knows how stressful it is until you get there.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not high stress. I'm too fun of a person to be high stress. But when I think about my own background, I didn't graduate high school on time. And it didn't have anything to do with not being able to graduate, none of those things. But it was some things for me that were not addressed. Right. And so when we talk about trauma, I think about how was my school not addressing my needs as a student. But luckily, I was able to bounce back and get a career. Yeah. Well, how many kids do we have in the school building that we don't believe it, but I'm going to tell you, there will still be in 2023 some first generation high school graduates and some families this year. Yeah. That sounds crazy because you probably come from a family where that was the norm. Yep. Well, that's not the norm for everyone.
Well, I think my father barely graduated high school.
But he graduated.
He did, But I mean, it was an option where I just don't need it.
Yeah.
That was not beyond the realm of possibilities. So, but it's, he stayed in anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So think about how many.
Yeah. It's unheard. It's surprising these days.
It's not unheard of, but it's surprising until you encounter it. Yeah. And so, when I think about me and you just said, what about trauma for today? Yeah. There are some instances that are still traumatic. There are people in school buildings today that do not believe in the kids that they teach, and that will have an effect. Yeah. I mean.
Yeah, that does. There's a guy, Hal Bowman, does that ring a bell?
No.
Teach like a rock star.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a friend of mine.
Okay.
And I met him probably 13, 14 years ago. Did a video shoot for him. And he was at that point getting started speaking to schools. And he would come in for professional education days. Okay. Development days. And his presentation, if you will, was so amazing. Just caring about the kids, helping teachers discover why they were doing what they were doing. But, the elephant in the room is the fact that, like any other job in America these days, hasn't kept up with inflation. Teachers are expected to do so much more of these. I have so much empathy for teachers. I never thought I would, but my goodness. I mean, they're just these poor, they're saddled with debt. They have to have master's degrees. And it's like the ROI on that is hardly worth it. Yeah. Other than, getting a soul satisfaction out of it. Yeah. They're doing it for the passion of it. Yeah. And I know firsthand that whenever you do something for the passion of it, like radio, which is what I did for 17 years, eventually the passion runs out. Yeah. Now I need to get paid. It really does.
I agree. Oh,
right. And I think that's a big part of the problem. Actually, Dr. Grant Bell,
You're throwing out all these names.
Springfield Middle School.
Okay, no.
Yeah.
But I know Springfield.
Yeah. He's the principal up there. He came in and he shifted the culture. It took him about, where he is now, I think it took him about 7-8 years to shift the culture of the school. And he just started calling the kids scholars.
Mm-hmm.
And all the parents were like, why are you calling them scholars? They're not scholars. You're redefining a word and making it less powerful. He says, no, we're going to call them scholars.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to show them that we believe in them. And he understood it had to come from him because he was the head honcho. He was the principal.
Yeah.
And he got everybody on board. He says, I had to weed out the people. And the people, he called them the mud clumps, the dirt clumps. So he says, my grandfather was a farmer. And Granddad, how do you make the tracks so straight?
Yeah.
I don't worry. He says, because I got all these dirt clumps that are throwing me off my course. He says, I just keep my eye on that oak tree over there in the distance. And I don't vary from that.
Yeah. Okay.
And he basically,
I like that.
he basically equated it to that all the dirt clumps, the naysayers, just you're falling under my tires. I don't pay attention to you. I'm paying attention to that oak tree.
And they'll eventually leave.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. They'll eventually leave.
And he attracts the people he really wants.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now he's got a magnet school that's taking on high school grades. And, putting kids in the colleges and stuff like that.
Okay.
Their numbers, I think he's actually much farther beyond the benchmark. They were way behind it in the beginning, but now he's like, just miles away from the average benchmark.
Yeah.
So he's done an amazing job.
Yeah.
So there's proof there. And one of the things we did talk on was teacher compensation. I said, buddy, you've got a problem heading your way. The whole industry does.
Well, they're going to have to, as it relates to, so this guy, and it was a guy that brought this up, and he has this t-shirt that says, educators are not paid well because the system doesn't value women.
Right.
Because most educators
are women. Yeah.
And so if you think about the funding just in general, women always make more than men. So you think about what if this our profession was flipped, where it was more men than women, with the compensation be different.
It would get more attention paid to it, you think?
I don't know. I wonder because there is a pay gap between women and men, and the education profession is predominantly women. And so could that be a real thing? Who knows?
Right.
I got out where I am compensated well for what I do.
But you're your own business though, right?
Yes. And then I work with another company as well too.
Right.
But they compensate us for our expertise. So now I'm getting paid for my expertise and to help. It's almost like we're not paying. I want to say a cheat code. Instead of us having to figure it out, I'm paying for someone to help give us some direction so we can make some quick traction. Yeah. And so, they're going to have to raise the pay.
They are.
Because you have a lot of good educators that leave because I'm going to be honest, Jim. I don't know if I started today, if I would be able to maintain the high level,
your lifestyle.
And how I, started back in the day because, I enjoy teaching. I enjoy being in the classroom. I enjoyed my kids. But even today, thinking about the culture and the generation of students that we had now, I don't know if they would make me as happy. I would.
I get it. The thing is that, there's a part of me that dares to say that kids actually have it a lot easier than we had it.
They do.
My kids would probably surely disagree, but I mean, it's like, guys, I've been through what I know as education, not to take away their intelligence or anything like that. I'm amazed at how smart my kids are. My daughter helping my youngest daughter with her homework and her math and stuff that I haven't thought about in 30 years.
Right.
And, my daughter's right there to help her out. And she's happy to do it, not fractions, but ratios and things. I'm like, God, I would have to spend 6 hours refreshing how to do all this stuff. But, I'm glad she's there and able to do it. And she was able to take to it like a fish to water. But, you're not wrong. I mean, there is definitely a wave coming. And I equate it to what happened in radio, where I spent a majority of my adult professional life.
Okay.
In radio, if you're on the programming side, what I did, production, voiceover, air jobs, that kind of air jobs, on air jobs.
Yeah. Okay.
That kind of thing was passion driven.
Mm-hmm.
And if you got to the big markets, the major markets, and you were good enough and talented enough to get huge numbers of audiences to listen to you and stuff like that, you had good ratings, you could write your ticket. And that only happened in the bigger markets,
Mm-hmm.
Dallas, Miami, LA, New York. That doesn't happen anymore. That's an industry that has gone, that has cannibalized itself.
Syndication, right?
Syndication was part of it. A lot of homogenization that happened within the industry, not really serving the public's best interest, that kind of thing. And they didn't pour into the next generation of talent. So now they're reaping what they've sown. And radio is relegated to becoming just a massive commodity at this point and barely serves the public interest. Teaching the educational business is heading in that direction. They're not pouring into the next generation. They're not thinking about, okay, we got to pay these people.
Yeah.
These
but you
people
have to also support them.
support them. Absolutely.
I'm going to be honest. Like, my pay was not that great.
Yeah.
But I got a lot of support from my administration, a lot of professional development and things like that. So I enjoyed it, right? And I can make it work. But we don't support teachers as much as, let me tell you something. The pandemic did a thing on teachers because at first everybody loved us. And then we were the villain because we wanted to, I say we, but I wasn't in the classroom at that time. I was consulting at that time too. But teachers wanted to be sure that they were safe going back into schoolhouses too.
Yeah.
And people were like, oh, you don't want to teach our kids versus, okay, we get it. We kind of undervalue you just a little bit and underestimated how much we really needed teachers. Yeah. And now that teachers were pushing back like, hey, we have families too. We want to be safe. Then we were the villain. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that ran a lot of people away as well.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, would you want to go back to a profession that just because you did not bend when they wanted you to bend? Mm-hmm. I mean, that doesn't feel good. At first, I was celebrated for doing what necessary to keep education going. And then when it was like, no, we need to put our foot down and make sure we're safe as well. Oh, you just don't want to teach our kids. What? Wait a minute.
Yeah.
What?
But and that's whenever I get in front of like parent teacher conferences for my kids.
Yeah.
My wife and I are very, I would say, reasonable people. Of course, I'm going to say that about myself. But I'll get in front of teachers and we don't typically hear horror stories about our kids.
Yeah.
But if we do, we're going to be like, all right, I get it. They can be they can be a bonehead every now and then. How do we fix this?
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of parents, how dare you say that about my little, I would imagine that still goes on a lot. Of course. And it's an awareness thing, even for the parents to realize that maybe the kid needs to, be reeled in.
Okay, I take it back to when I was in school as a parent. Right. How many times did my teacher call home and exaggerate some behavior?
Did they?
Sometimes.
Did they?
Sometimes. No. If I exaggerate,
I don't know.
It sounds better. Yes, sometimes. Yeah. I've seen teacher friends exaggerate some behaviors for kids. Right. Like, so I wasn't the one that had issues with if I had an issue and had to send the kid to an office, it was handled because I was not one that had a lot of issues. I was a disciplinarian, we don't do foolishness in my room. We didn't do foolishness. Right. But also my students recognized too that I was there for their best interest. Mm-hmm. If you can't learn if we in here acting crazy. So if I had to call somebody to the office or send them away, it really happened because most things I handled internally. But that's not everyone's story. Right. And we have to recognize, too, that teachers are people, too, and they have feelings and they make mistakes as well. Yeah. Right? I think part of it, too, is just not believing a teacher just because it's your kid. I'm the one that's like, okay, let me hear two sides to this story. Mm-hmm. I know my kids and I know how they act at home. But again, teachers are people too. Yeah. Education can be hard. Can I just say that?
It's extremely hard.
It can be hard. Yeah. It can be hard navigating a variety of personalities, cultures, and still wanting to give your all to all of your students.
It's amazing how akin to each other the radio business is to education, now that I think of it, because once upon a time I worked for a radio company that was publicly traded.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh, here's a business model where we have to not only appease the listener, we have to make sure that the advertiser dollar is meeting their value and make sure we're getting, the maximum out of the advertiser dollar as well, but also that they're getting a value out of their advertising. Throw in the shareholder. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh my gosh. And I think that was probably helped, I guess, with the quote unquote demise of the industry. You've got a similar situation in a way, because now the teachers are almost like consumers in a way. They're customers of the actual educational institution. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You've got the parents, and then you got the students.
And then you got the community.
And the community, right.
Then you got the school board.
Mm-hmm. So think of all those different parties that need to be pleased. It's not just pleasing a customer.
Exactly. So when I think about leadership, leaders have the hardest job, because not only do they need to make sure that the school is running, they have all these stakeholders that they have to appease: students, parents, community, school board, superintendent. Yeah. Partners. So we have all of these stakeholders that they're juggling. That's what I'm saying. Education is hard. So when anyone ever makes a blanket statement about education, that lets me know you're not an educator, because nothing is ever that black and white. Because guess what? If it was, we wouldn't be in as bad a shape that we are. Right. Like, I don't think. Do you know the literacy rates in our country?
I do not.
Okay.
But you study data in your sleep and at all free moments that you have, and for your, this is what you derive joy out of.
Well, I'm fascinated because, now this is recent data, 49% of Americans, 49%, and you can look it up, are reading at 6th grade or below. That's functionally illiterate.
They're writing the way too.
Uh-huh.
Just look at Facebook any given day.
Okay. 17% just can't read.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who are we serving?
Oh my God. It's whoever's getting the tax dollar above us.
Okay.
Now honestly, you got to look at all the administration. All right. You drive by any administrative building, and if there are Beamers and Mercedes in the parking lot, I think that's a problem. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, okay. So let me say this.
Is it top heavy?
I can't always say, yes, that's a problem, because they have put in their dues. A lot of them have been on the school level for at least a couple of decades. Yeah. They have advanced degrees.
Their ship has finally come in.
Okay. So, they've been rewarded for their work, right? Mm-hmm. It's problematic when you have people at the top that are being rewarded for their expertise, but we don't see a shift. Now, then we need to question.
Well, that's simply even with our politicians that are in office. That kind of goes along the lines of term limits.
Listen,
right?
Do not get me started with how I feel about education and politics, because I feel like there is a correlation as to why we haven't done a little bit more for educators and education as it relates to politics, because, if I can't read well, I can't reason well, nor can I critically think. And you can easily feed me information.
Right.
The information you want me to have, because I can't navigate past the information that you feed me.
Yeah.
And I keep you in power because you're feeding me what I want.
Right. And here we are in a world where we've got, the breadth of the entire world's history of education right here on a phone. Like, if you wanted to educate yourself, you really could.
Well, if you knew how to see, and herein lies the problem.
Right.
I can go publish something right now to make it look official, but that doesn't mean it's true.
Right.
It just looks true.
Right.
And that's part of the problem. People don't recognize when they're being sold a dream or when propaganda is sitting in front of them, because they can't reason or critically think. So I am really at the mercy of whoever is feeding me the information. And if whoever is feeding me know that the information is keeping them in power, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
I'm going to continue to feed you. And so I don't think politics will get any better until we address the literacy crisis. It's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse, right? Because technology's taken over, and I need technology. Like, my phone was not working yesterday, and I politely pulled into Verizon and was like, fix this, please, because I need this.
Yeah.
But I also know how to navigate a newspaper, read a magazine. I'm sorry, I talk with my hands.
That's fine. You're good. You do you.
But how many people don't know how to navigate through those things, and they can fall for false information that feeds them, and they continuously make decisions by who's in office that really do not serve them, but it serves the messages that they're receiving.
Right. Propaganda.
It is
Media.
very much. But if I don't know how to read or think, then what am I going to do?
Well, yeah. And it's like there's also a part of this that I always talk about with the pendulum idea that I bring up all the time. There's a theory I subscribe to called pendulum, and I believe we're living through 1943 all over again.
Okay,
and it
tell
goes
me more.
And it goes back and forth. So there's nothing new under the sun. What we've been through has happened before, that kind of thing, and it gives us hope, because if we've weathered it before, we can weather it again. And if anything, it'd actually come out even better, because as long as we're getting ahead of it. And I'm going to ask you if you have, I believe you have a podcast, no?
No, I don't. I want one so bad because I have so many opinions.
Yeah. Because I mean, you can kind of, own that edge of just, guys, we got to be better at reading and writing.
Yeah.
Okay. And critically thinking and being able to comprehend what we're reading. Because I mean, a lot of my critical thinking comes from life experience. I also believe we live in a sell or be sold world. Okay. Someone is doing the selling or someone is being sold in any given institute. In this conversation we're having, someone's doing the selling. You're doing a lot of selling.
You think so?
Oh yeah. You've got good ideas. I'm buying. I love them. I like them. So there's an effect of that.
Yeah.
I believe that selling itself is an underutilized, undereducated skill. Okay, practical skills, and I guess maybe in the industrialization of the educational industry is the topics that they chose to put out there. Once upon a time they taught all these practical skills, and then they got away with it for more academic type of approaches on topics. I think that's a problem. Okay. You're talking about reading. I mean, hell, let's talk about reading a profit and loss statement, a balance sheet, an income statement.
I love it. Numbers, financial literacy.
Yeah.
I honestly think, one thing I will say about our younger generation is that because we've told them, be self-aware, do these things, they will think and they will question, like, kids today will question everything. Yeah. So that is one thing that I can appreciate.
Oh, their BS meters are off the charts.
They don't just take an answer because you said so, because you said so. My youngest child,
I think that's a good thing.
I appreciate it. Yep. Like, my youngest child is not a do as I say, it's a why. Yeah. And so me and my oldest son, my oldest son is 28, and he and I were having a conversation, and I said, I know you're probably looking at Maxwell like, really, dude? Yeah. Mama would not have explained that to me. Like, that would not have been a conversation. But my youngest is, and my middle too. My middle is a little more compliant, but that youngest is just like, well, why? Does that even make sense? And so one of the things that I have hope for our younger generation that's coming up is that they're going to question things. Yeah. And if it doesn't make sense, whether you have a term limit or not, they're going to get you out of here because it's not serving them. So I will say that they are much more open-minded. Technology has done that for them, have made them globally minded. And now I don't have to just stay and believe everything that my parents said because my parents said it. I now can have my own set of beliefs. And I do appreciate that aspect of technology. Yeah. It is requiring us to be more mindful. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. Now, of course, there are going to always be people who want us to remain status quo or how they feel comfortable, but the world is ever changing and ever evolving. So although I do feel like there are politicians and policies that are trying to take us back a few decades, we have a whole generation of kids and youth, adolescents that will be young adults that have experienced certain freedoms, been able to have relationships with diverse population groups that are not going to stand for that, which is hopeful. That's where that hope comes from in the future. Now, here is the other thing. We have to, okay, and I know we're not talking politics, but I think the way that politicians are trying to suppress history tells a lot.
Yeah.
It answers a lot of questions. And I don't think what they realize is the more that they try to suppress certain things, the more curious I become. You don't want us to
trying to tell me.
Right.
Yeah. What are you hiding from me?
What are you hiding and what are you not
You've
wanting?
indicated to something. Now you got to tell me.
Right.
Who's being sold and who's doing the selling?
Who's being sold and who benefits.
Right.
So when we talk about education, it's not just being able to read, write, and all the things, but it's also being able to seek out truth and information that is honest, right? Because I can twist a whole lot of things for my benefit.
You do realize that the pursuit of truth has eluded us as an entire species.
Yes. And it will continue.
Yeah.
Especially when I put things in your face that looks truthful, I feel like I found it.
You can make a compelling argument. Absolutely.
And that's it.
I mean, if you go back to Pontius Pilate, taking court with Christ and, the Jews delivered him to him. What is the one thing that he says, well, why are you here? And Jesus replies, well, I'm here to bear witness to the truth. And how does Pontius Pilate respond? Do you remember?
He kind of washes his hands, asks them, who do y'all want?
He goes,
and my hands are clean. I'm washing my hands. My hands are clean. I'm going to let y'all make the decision.
But before that, he turns to Jesus because they were both, talking with each other.
Okay.
And Jesus just finished having the crap kicked out of him. He goes, I'm here to bear witness to the truth. And Pontius Pilate replies with, what is truth? And it's true. And it's almost like you could hear him going, okay, what is truth? Even
truth is
back
whatever
then,
you make it to be.
There's three sides to it.
Yours, mine, and the truth.
And the truth.
It is. So, hey, that even happens when it comes to holding kids accountable.
Even in the court system, truth and justice, I guess, are basically somewhat one and the same. But justice is an attempt at justice in our own fallible way. Mm-hmm. My brother described it in a video one time. He says, this is where we attempt. He's in front of a courthouse. He's an attorney. And he says, these are the lady justice. These are the scales. Mm-hmm. Here's the blindfold she wears. Here's her sword of justice. And all these represent images of what our attempt to seek justice looks like. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. Because what is truly just isn't going to be known until up on high comes on down. I was about to ask
you that. Well, what is justice?
Right.
If you don't feel like you really have the truth, are you really delivering justice?
Right. And that's, is the judge corrupt? Is the jury been, compromised? Right.
So
even as I get older, I know the word compromise, but it spaces out on me, which is fun, aging.
And that's why education is so important. And I think sometimes we discount it. And we discount what we think kids need. And we think it's interesting how we as the adult feel as if we know what kids need and we haven't even asked them.
Right.
No, this is what you need to be educated.
Right.
But we haven't even, asked the kids, is this serving you? Is this helping you at all? And I think, when I was a teacher, like I still talk to so many of my kids to this day, some students. In fact, I saw one like 3 weeks ago and she got upset because I didn't remember her, but I was like, babe, I taught you in 2008. Do you know how many people I have met since 2008? And you're now an adult. You're like 25. I knew you when you were 10.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we were with one of my high school classmates, and one of the things that she said was, Miss Battle didn't play, but she wanted us to learn. Yeah. Right. So I wanted them to learn, but I also wanted them to have the resources available that they didn't always need me to tell them what it is that they needed to learn. Are you able to figure out what you need to be successful? Because guess what? Every one of my students are not going to go to college.
Right.
They're not. I'm not pushing college. The only one of my kids that have graduated college is my middle son. My oldest has not graduated college, but he has a trade. He's doing well. Lives on his own.
What does he do?
He works in janitorial. So he's gotten certified in working like certain types of equipment. And
It's like a maintenance position.
yes,
Right.
but he had to take some tests because of the equipment. My youngest son is 20 and still trying to figure out life. Okay.
Right. Which is okay. That's a good age to figure it out.
And that's what I told him. You do not have to act like you're a 40-year-old man with 5 kids. You're 20.
Okay. You've gotten a pretty good idea of who I am
Yes.
over the first podcast with Marcus and now here. Would you ever believe that I actually was on a trajectory to be a CPA?
Okay. Now, because of your voice is so calming, I could see you doing numbers. I just don't see you enjoying doing numbers.
There is a part of me, and I learned, and this is the practical aspect of my high school career. I took a class, and my senior year was undoubtedly my most successful year in education, period, because I was put in classes that all of a sudden I could sink my teeth into. I took an accounting class, and because it dealt with real world things, keeping track of finances for a business, things of that nature. I was like, oh my gosh, this speaks to me. I'm good at it. I like doing it. And then I go to college I'm like, I'm out of my mind. This is not who I am.
I couldn't see you enjoying it.
No. I'm capable.
It's too repetitive.
Yeah.
It's a little mundane. It doesn't give you the flavor, and you like to have really good conversations.
Yeah.
So could I see you doing numbers?
No.
And doing numbers?
Yeah.
I could see you doing it, but not long, because you would be like, okay.
Now I have to do it. I have to do a little minimum bookkeeping, and it's a giant pain in the ass.
But it's different, and it's for you.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So what you just said is what we miss every day in education. You were put in a class, you sunk your teeth in it, and was like, oh my gosh, here's life right here. I'm balancing this. We don't do that enough.
Right.
That's why we don't get our students engaged enough in learning, because they don't see what they can sink their teeth into and how it even pertains to life at all.
I feel like we're seeing a little bit of that. The ship is turning.
A little.
And, if a kid is more inclined to be a trade, trajectory, they will put them on that track and not downplay it.
They're trying.
They're trying. Mike Rowe, and it's like, I don't know if there was once upon a time that there were kickbacks from colleges that the schools got, or from government, or what. I don't know. Maybe you would know, but I mean, I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised to find out that was the case, because that's why the heavy drive to college happened. All college did, and I'll take this till I'm dead. All it did was similar to home ownership. The thing being sold to people about home ownership, it's the American dream. And I know I'm probably pissing off all my mortgage and real estate friends out there, but this is kind of the truth. It benefited the banks. Okay, let's drive up the costs. Let's drive up the cost of education. You notice that when they wanted to forgive student loans, nobody ever brought up the fact, well, hey, the ink's not even worth the paper it's printed on. College, give me my money back.
Yeah.
No one ever brings that up.
Well, you know what they did when they did that case, and they sued all those for-profit colleges and won. So it was a huge lawsuit.
Wow, really?
Yeah, the Borrowers Defense Fund, the Borrowers Defense suit.
Yeah.
It was Sweetwater versus the Department of Education. It just settled like earlier this year. But that's what they said. We took out all of these loans for all these for-profit colleges that are now out of business. No accreditation. So these degrees that we got are worth nothing. Yeah. They won that suit. Millions of borrowers, whoever borrowed money from those colleges, got their loans forgiven and the refunds.
Wow.
They got like thousands of dollars refunded back from what they've paid. Now, here's the problem. If they forgive all of these loans and you have all of these for-profit entities out of billions of dollars, that's the issue.
They're gone.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Right. And so when they started pushing college, they had turned the standards to college ready. We're trying to get kids college ready.
Right.
Well, every kid is not college ready. So now it's college and career ready. And so they're trying to shift the language. But what we have to be honest and say is, I don't have to go to college to be a productive citizen and contribute to my community. But we, again, sell that dream. And then when I don't kind of hit the mark, or I can't get there, then I feel like a failure.
It's traumatic.
Then what?
Right.
So my life is over. Then what? So, it's so many pieces in the world of education that once you start peeling back layers, you can start talking about something else. We've discovered something else about just education, period. Like, I never imagined being in education, but then I couldn't leave because I was with a group of students who were told that they would. I got real invested because they were told that they would be nothing.
Oh,
and I'm like, who would tell a 12-year-old that you're going to be nothing? Like, people would tell them they were dumb and how dumb they were. And it just was like, who does that? Yeah. And so then I got caught up with a group of 13-year-olds who needed someone to believe in them and to say, okay, you might not go to college, but who said you can't, start a business doing nails?
No.
Who said you can't do hair? So the student I ran into 3 weeks ago, she has a hair salon. And it's starting to
probably making bank.
She had a nice size salon, okay, and hired people in her 20s, and now has an after school program in one of the local middle schools, giving those young ladies an introductory after school course into like hair braiding and things like that. I know hair braiders that make 6 figures braiding hair.
Yeah. Are you familiar with George Carlin, the comedian?
Yes.
Yeah, he passed on years ago. I was a huge fan of his back in the day, and although they were comedy bits, he was really commenting on socio-political happenings at the moment. Right. And one thing that he said back in the day that is so true today, he says the educational institution is there to create obedient workers.
Yes.
Did
you not know that?
Nobody ever actually said it. I think we all kind of knew it intrinsically, but nobody verbalized it. And then you kind of look at, if you tell the kids that, look, this education is to basically pour the foundation. Mm-hmm. You are going to be working for somebody, entrepreneurialism, how to be your own boss, how to define success.
Okay.
It's like, success is a subjective term, right?
It is. Okay. So this is, okay. Remember,
we're going to be here a while.
Remember when me and Marcus were talking and he was like, my kids have to make A's and B's. To me, when a kid has to make A's and B's, you're seeing how well they follow the instructions and can regurgitate. Right. Kind of what he just said. Are we teaching good, kids how to be really great workers? Right. All right, go to private schools. Mm-hmm. That's not how they operate.
Is it more meritocracy there?
Well, yes. Yeah. And it's not so much of, they want the freedom of thought, but they do require you to do work and answer questions and things like that. But they also have opportunities for you to engage with people from around the world. They have opportunities for you to determine how do you want to give back in the community. They give you the freedom to say, hey, it's a problem. You want to solve it? Give me a proposal. And if it makes sense, we'll launch this on campus.
Sell me on it.
Right. But you know what they do?
Right.
They connect them with the business leaders of the community that allow them the opportunity to do more than be a good worker. I create the jobs so I can have good workers, right?
You just kind of, bringing up before with Marcus, you hit upon something that is also at play here, and there's parental pride, right? Marcus is only, doing what was taught to him by his parents, because back in the day, grades mattered, and hopefully got you the edge. So he's just kind of repeating that cycle, which is funny because this podcast is all about breaking the cycle of fatherlessness, but he just knows that, hey, this is what you need to be doing. You need to do it to the best of your ability. I'm not so heavy-handed with my kids on those things. My son, I know he's capable. He's just lazy, and it's like, dude, I get it. I was like that too. But at the same time, this is your job. You kind of got to do it. It is what it is. I apologize. Recently the ACTs came out. My daughter scored. She took it over and over again. We know somebody who just hammered their kid. I mean, probably since they were in the 7th grade. With ACT, taking it over and over again. So naturally, when it could time, for the money to hit the, what am I saying here? The rubber to meet the road. He scored a perfect score. There were 4 kids in the Williamson County School District. He was among them. So for her, the mother, it's a source of, look at my kid. Would you look? He scored because I did this. Okay. It's more about, I can drive around with that sticker on the back of my car that my kid goes to a school than about the kid. And it's like, dude, once he gets out from under your thumb, oh, buddy, this kid's in for it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, look, he could really do a lot of great things. I don't doubt it. This is more about you than it is them.
Right.
That's a problem.
Very problematic.
Right?
I'm not a big grade person, okay?
Right.
Because grades mean nothing. I know what they mean. That means you can regurgitate something really well,
right.
So I'm gonna go back to your son. I don't necessarily think if you know your son has the ability, I don't think he's lazy.
Right.
I think he has his zone of genius has not been tapped,
right.
and he recognizes I can do just enough to get by. I'll be okay. I won't fail. I might not necessarily get an A, but hey, I'm gonna pass. I'm gonna get a B. Okay.
Right.
But when something kind of like your senior year in high school, when it hit your zone of genius, you were all in. So I don't think his zone of genius has been hit yet.
Yeah.
And once it is, you're gonna be like, what in the world? Well, it really it means something. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't think I'm not a big A, B type, because I know how I was as a learner, and I recognize that I could have easily graduated with honors, but again, school was not doing anything for me at the time. And then I had already said, I'm gonna go to the Navy. Didn't wind up going to the Navy, but you know, my ASVAB score was through the roof. So I knew I was gonna go. Didn't go because of some other things, but my zone of genius was not. A's and B's mean nothing to me if you cannot give me an independent thought.
Right.
That means you just took what I said, adjusted it just a little bit, and regurgitated it back, and you're not thinking about this content as an individual. And I think we have to get away from compliance. To me, that's compliance.
Yeah.
Compliance type education, teaching kids how to follow directions well, how to be a really great worker. And I know George Carlin was a little controversial because he hit on those topics that really like kind of stung a little bit. Like, I can't believe you just said that.
Right.
Like, what?
Oh my gosh, you said exactly what I was thinking. What are you doing?
Right.
Yeah.
And so when I think about education, so my youngest son, I think about him, and because he's the one that's just like, what, you had a full scholarship, dude? And was like, yeah, school. He was like, so this is when I knew that I was like, okay, you got time to figure life out. He called me maybe the third or fourth week in college, right? He went to a really good private school. So, he writes extremely, in fact, he writes so well, I have to stop and, you wrote that?
Yeah.
But anyway, about his third or fourth week in college, he sent me a text and this was the question. I thought you said college was supposed to be hard. And I said, it's as hard as you make it. If you get behind, it becomes difficult. So then he sends me another text and was like, he sends me a grade. He wrote a paper. He got a A. And the teacher just went on and on about how well this paper was written.
Gushing.
So then I said, well, good job. So then he sends me a follow-up text and said, if I would have turned this in at my high school, this was a C at best.
He's a smart kid. To be that aware.
I didn't know what else to say. And I said, well, Maxwell, honestly, I feel like the first 2 years of college just kind of weeds people out, and then you get in your core. And he said, I may go back, but right now I don't need anyone to weed me out. I want to learn the trade, the finance industry, and I'm going to hire somebody to teach me how to finance and trade.
Wow. Good for him.
Well, what do you say? I'm like, he's
Hey.
20. And I said, well, if you're not going to go to college, you still have to, keep a job. I'm not taking care of you. And he was like, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But he has, he's all into trade and trying to learn how to trade. But he was serious. Yeah. He was like, I'm not wasting time or money for this right now. And if I want to do it, I'll come back. But if I would have turned this in high school, this was not an A. He said, I know it was not an A because I wrote this like last night, the night before and turned it in.
This is minimum effort on my part.
Minimum.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing about what he's saying is that he probably won't have to hire somebody. He'll probably find somebody. In fact, I would tell him, look, you could probably find somebody to hire you and you just job shadow or apprentice and you can get paid.
Yeah.
And as long as you just kind of do, that's how lawyers used to be made. I mean, you spent time in the law library pulling cases, finding precedents for the attorneys that were doing the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
That's how you got on your path to become a bar certified
most
attorney.
Apprentices.
Right.
Most apprentices.
That doesn't happen anymore
either.
either.
We got rid of those programs.
Right. And they were effective.
You know what? I don't even know how we got in this conversation, but I don't know how college became the thing. Because I did too hear it. I heard it growing up too.
The educational industrial complex, the benefits banks.
Yeah. I heard it too. And then...
and then the ugly thing, the most disgusting thing is requiring the teachers to get masters.
If you want to have any upward movement in education, you do have to be at least master's.
But how much does that cost?
More than
hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I was going to say much more than your undergraduate degree. At least least $30,000 for most master's programs.
Ridiculous.
And someone asked me recently, Eric, are you going to go back and get your doctorate? And I said, for what? I said, not having a doctorate now has not stopped anything that I'm doing. And I said, the only reason why I would get a doctorate is for vanity purposes only. And I said, but I don't think I want to spend $60,000 to be vain. Like, it's not even...
not that important to me anymore.
Not that serious anymore. And so I think one of the things that we have to recognize is, number one, it's okay if every kid decides not to go to college.
Right.
And we should not shame kids or question their decision to not want to go to college. And we do that a lot. Like, I have to, remind educators that your upbringing may not match the upbringing of your student, but does that make either upbringing right or wrong? Right. Do you want them to acknowledge how you were brought up and what you value? I need you to honor them as well. Mm-hmm. So we can't shame kids for not wanting to go to college. People questioned me when they were like, you're not going to make him go to school? I said, first of all, he's grown. I can't make him do anything. I said, and second of all, I wouldn't want to have to waste my time if I knew that was not something I wanted to do. You're wasting time and money. Yeah. Because again, he was given a full scholarship, but if you're not going to use it, let them take that money back and give it to someone who really wants it. I'm okay with that. Right. So we cannot shame kids for not wanting to go to college. And I'm sorry, I know I'm an educator and that probably is not the right answer for some, but then we need to allow to give students the opportunity to find something that will address their passion, to find the relevance in school. We are trying, we're trying to embed more technology. It's a whole nother conversation when we start talking about educational technology programs, whole nother conversation. But we're trying to embed things like technology. But are we really teaching kids how to use technology as a resource, or kids using technology for entertainment purposes more and more often? And that's okay. I have one of my college classmates graduated college, worked for the ACLU for maybe about 8 years, and now is a luxury fashion influencer. Yeah. And probably makes almost close to $1 million a year as an influencer for luxury fashion. That's a real thing. But here's the thing. She is college educated. So she understands business probably, because she is college educated and she, so we do have to help kids understand you still need to know how to read. You still need to make sure that someone's not getting in and over you, and that you can still balance your checkbook. Yeah. Because that's why you have a lot of these athletes that leave these areas. They go sign these contracts. They make buku money, millions upon millions of dollars.
Then they're broke 3 years later.
Then they're broke. Yeah. They leave the league or wherever they were. And within 3 years, they have no more money than me or you. Someone failed them.
And that's funny because there are actually a smart move from the financial sector was taking some of those athletes, they hired them, like at some of these investment companies, and would get them in front of these new recruits, the rookies, and say, okay, before you go nuts, listen to these guys, okay? Let them tell you their cautionary tale and why you should really get with us to plan this better, because this isn't guaranteed for the rest of your life.
Right.
You got 10 years on average.
Well, you think about Shaquille O'Neal, and you have to have someone honest.
He's smart as a
well,
whip.
one of the first things he said was, I listened to him all the time. He said, my first year in the league, I bought, spent $1 million in jewelry, cars, and something else. He said
apartments.
And he said, my financial advisor called me and was like, if you keep spending money like this, you will be broke.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't sugarcoat it as well. Then you have to find people who don't mean you harm and are not trying to take advantage of you.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't know any better, you don't know who has your best interest. You know, celebrities fall for that all the time. Yep. Well, it's rooted back in education. If I don't know how to make good decisions, I don't know how to read well and for information, these contracts are a bunch of words that I do not want to navigate. So I bring it back to education always. It stems back to education and why we're here, you know, and then we wonder why people go broke after making all of this money. Well, someone took advantage of me. So it doesn't matter if it's a politician or a financial advisor. If you do not have the skill set to navigate any of these things, anyone can take advantage of you.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. Amen. And that's how it happened with Billy Joel. He lost almost his wealth because his accountant or his CPA at the time, it was like back in the 80s or early 90s, just robbed him blind. And he had no idea.
Robbed him blind, like right there in front of you.
I mean, it was one of those things that he just, he was thankful he had the market equity to pick up and rebuild. But without it, I mean, most of these athletes don't have that.
No.
It's based on meritocracy. You better perform.
I better perform. Or if not, now that I can't perform, what else can I do to be able to make the amount of money, at least, you know, somewhere close to where I was, so I can continue a lifestyle I had got used to.
Yeah. And I guess that's whenever you get into the organization, you know, if the Titans recruit people, they've got to have people, hopefully, that are trustworthy within the ranks to help these guys. Because at least these kids will be, well, okay, I feel like the organization's going to look out for my best interest, so I'll trust this guy. Yeah. Obviously, he's got a reputation. They know him. That, you know, so maybe it comes from that.
Yeah, and then you think about families, too. Yeah. You know, because not all families have your best interest.
Oh,
You've come into a lot of money. You're going to get us all out the
They're coming out of the woodwork.
Right. You're getting us all out. And then we get so loyal that we don't know how to say no. So it's all of these pieces that you really stems back to education and how do we navigate life. So when we think about education is not just about what it's going to help me do career-wise. How does education help me navigate life?
Yeah.
So
it's almost like that scene from Rocky Balboa. I believe it was the 6th movie that they had.
Where was he at?
He was, he was semi-retired, and he gives a speech to his son. His son really is kind of embarrassed by his dad and blames all these people, including his dad, for his ability to not move forward. Like they look at his son in where he's employed as almost like, well, you're the son of, you're not exactly him, but we're going to pick on you anyway, and he blames his dad for a lot of what he's going through. And it's one of the most classic motivational speeches you'll ever come across, where he basically says, life will keep you down if you let it. Nothing's going to hit as hard as life. He says, I've been beaten up. He says, but the one thing you can keep on doing, you got to be able to take that hit and keep moving forward. I think that should be played in every single high school in America, after the pledge.
Well, that's part of the problem. We don't teach kids how to navigate life.
Right.
The parent that wanted to make sure
those things.
Yeah. So when I said we take our hands off of kids, we don't teach them how to navigate life, how to make good decisions, how to fall and pick up. We don't teach them resilience. Right. One thing I will say, kids don't have the type of resilience that we had. We do make things a little bit easier for them. We make adjustments so they don't have to have it as hard. Where I'm thinking, they need to have it as hard because
we're Gen Xers, man.
No one is gonna make. No one made that adjustment for me.
That's right.
Make them go through that. I don't feel sorry for you. I don't feel sorry for you.
Here's the thing is that even like, it goes back to the pendulum theory that I talk about all the time. No matter how educated and how we can teach them, it's like my friend Bradley, who's he's a junior, a high school dropout. He's probably worth 8 figures at this point. Very successful human being. Runs a company that specializes in virtual training. So he's actually creating another iteration of private school, right? But online. And he's got Tony Robbins in his program, Damon John, Grant Cardone, all the heavyweights are in his program. That you can literally hire Tony Robbins to teach your kid. They'll learn about all those different things. That's almost like another evolution or a step in the evolutionary process of the educational. And I was going to ask you about that, but I think that's going to be next, but he basically talks about how, and I completely lost track of thought, but that was we're talking
about resilience
and
how we don't.
Yeah. Moving forward and stuff like that. But he talks about that a lot, being resilient. Especially in the educational system.
Yeah. But we were talking about how life knocks you down.
Yeah.
And you just said it. He's not even a high school graduate and he makes 8 figures. So how relevant was school for him at the point in time?
Nothing.
Not relevant enough for him to keep it, and he still was successful.
That's what I was going to say. He wrote a book called The Hard Way, and he and I go back and forth on it. I said, you do realize that there are still going to be people that have to learn the hard way. Me being one of them. I said, even you could listen to everybody who pours into your life, you're still going to mess up. And if that notion is put out to the kids that, look, it's going to happen. You're going to trip, you're going to fall, you're going to skin your knees. There are going to be pitfalls. You're going to be at rock bottom, whatever that may look like in your life. But the good thing is you can always get back and up and out.
Right.
You can rebound. You can be resilient. And he's like, no, I would actually say, you say that now that you would take it for face value, but you're still going to have the kid that despite how many times you don't tell them to touch the hot stove, they're still going to touch it.
Yeah.
Because they have to find out intrinsically.
Yeah, the hard way.
That's why we repeat history.
Yeah. I agree.
That's why we repeat
history's just a
history.
circle. You know that, right?
Oh,
History's just a big circle. It just kind of, continuously revolves. The characters just change,
They
honestly.
really do.
But history is a big circle.
I'm going to ask you this. We're going to move on to...
What's your problem?
What's your problem? And we kind of touched upon it before we started. What is the problem you're having? Because you got a business. You've stepped out from being a public professional educator.
Yes.
And you're in your own thing now.
Yes.
Successfully at that.
Okay.
Problems come along with that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you ready? What's the
Yeah,
problem?
I'm ready.
I was waiting on you to say what. I was waiting on you to say it again. So,
What's your problem?
No, so I would say a couple of things. One, it's hard to do this work alone.
Yeah.
And reach as many people as I would love to reach. So don't ever corner me and start talking about education, okay?
I'm passionate about it. That's why I had you on.
We're going to have a conversation. So one of it is getting the message out there to more people, or working with more educators. I think, too, one, because I'm a non-traditional, education was not my thing and I was successful. Teachers need to hear that it does get better. It does get better. Yeah. Does it take work? Yeah, it takes a lot of work. And I think that's the biggest thing is being able to scale the message alone.
Yeah.
Because I'm at that solopreneur stage.
How long you been doing it?
So I have been consulting a total of, I left school 2017. Okay. So going on 7 years. Okay. I left on my birthday in 2017. I left. I put in my 2 weeks notice. Actually, I left 10 days later, but I put in my 2 weeks notice and was like, it's time for me to go. Luckily, I was not in... I was in a public school, but I was in a charter. So it was easier for me to just kind of walk away. And I was not in a classroom. Right. So I was in a more of an administrative position. So I didn't leave a bunch of kids hanging. I don't want people think I left a bunch of kids hanging. But really growing this type of business and this type of work, people have to recognize that they need the kind of work. Yeah. So making sure that the messaging is right. I just launched a reading comprehension supplemental resource to help with reading comprehension. And so just getting the message out and the practicality of that type of resource, that's my biggest issue.
So marketing that actual
Yes.
Mailbox money type of.
Yes.
So is it a subscription or one-time buy?
No, so it's like a one-time buy, but you have pieces, components of the program that you'll have to continuously repurpose.
Okay.
So it's a strategy that I use inside of my classroom, and after some research and development, it has now turned into a full system. I have about 4 school districts who have implemented it in some kind of form. Some is through intervention. I've had a teacher implement here, a group of teachers implement there. Yeah. And so it's just, as a new business owner, I'm a creative. Marketing is not my thing. Sitting down doing the messaging is not my thing. Right. But the passion and the delivery of the services and supporting you, that's my thing. But I also have to do the other things in order to do my thing.
Yeah. Do you feel like you created a job that you own?
Right now I do. Right now it's a job because I work. If I'm not on the road, I'm working. Like I have to. My mom, I work with places out of the state or whatever. So if I'm home, my mom is like, okay, let's go to lunch, and I'm like, you do know that although I'm not in the school, I'm still kind of doing some work. Yeah. And she's like, oh, you are? Yes, I still gotta make sure that I'm actively supporting my schools that I'm in now, or looking for opportunities to support other schools. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So basically it's a curriculum that they can deploy within their schools to help the students get better at reading. Is it something that a parent can download and implement?
Yes. So it's not a curriculum. I stay very
I don't even know the difference.
Away. So a curriculum is actually the materials that we use to deliver content. Okay. Whereas my resource is supplemental, and it helps you deliver that content within the structure that they have. Within your structure. So it does not take away from any curriculum. So even if you have a prescribed curriculum that was prescribed with the district, my resource wouldn't take away. It would actually enhance what you're trying to teach kids how to do. And it can be used in the home, actually, to support parents addressing comprehension skills. Because basically what my reading it's called the Are You Actively Reading and Engaging Reading Comprehension System. Mm-hmm. And really it's a multisensory approach to help kids actively engage and comprehend text. Okay. That's what it is.
So that's your leader. Mm-hmm. That's your product, your service you're putting out there. That is, I talk about the tip of the spear, what gets the most conversation started. And if that's it for you, I would certainly think of, a derivative of it that would have consumer level, purchasability, It
does. So you could buy it.
So it does that.
It does. Okay. But
your problem is just the marketing of it and everything.
Yes. So right now my focus is schools because it has the biggest bang for its buck in schools. Right. When I can get schools to see how this helps with consistency of practice. Mm-hmm. Kids shouldn't be trying to figure out how to navigate what they're reading in every content area. Whereas give me a consistent way to navigate and engage with text. Now I can focus on the content. Okay. And so what the resource does, it helps with consistency of practice. I do have something big for parents coming out that I'm proposing for the public library to introduce it to a consumer base. Right. Partnering with public libraries when Read Me Week comes in March as a way to show parents this is a true way that you can engage meaningfully, purposefully, and intentionally with your reader at home. So,
see, honestly, I don't even think you need the libraries. I think you need, alignment and flaming ambassadors from teachers that shout it from the rooftops that, hey, help me help you help your kid. Mm-hmm. And this is a great supplement and great. It's only, $100 a year or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then the parents go ahead and that's how you start scaling this thing up. This is how I'm seeing the outside of your bottle now. This is what I do. And every $5,000-$6,000 extra you make in addition to what you're doing now, hire somebody.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
I am so ready.
It's wrapping your head around that concept. How do I do that? And it's even Brad Lee. He's the one I got the idea from. He says, When you start a business, get it up to $5,000 or $6,000 a month, or $10,000 so you can at least pay yourself. Take that $5,000, hire somebody. Train them, do what you need them to do. Get up to $15,000. Hire somebody.
Hire somebody else.
$20,000. Hire somebody.
Because I'm tired of doing all the roles. Okay.
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I am really trying to get there. So
you almost need maybe you need a Kajabi or a Lightspeed virtual training course that go along with the curriculum or the supplement, right?
I mean, that would be beneficial.
Yeah.
I think it's a matter of me carving out the time to do it.
Right.
Because I also have some additional projects that are in the works that are really taking my attention.
A lot of tabs open.
Okay, yeah, I'm like a school. I got 15 tabs open, and I'm trying to address the first 5.
Yep.
And so when we talk about entrepreneurship, also, that's something that we really need to have in schools because, people, you let the internet tell you entrepreneurship is all this time
Sexy.
freedom. And
that's right.
And it's
nothing
not.
but Ferraris and planes.
Oh, no, it's
beaches.
not. It is sometimes walking around in your pajamas, heating up the same cup of coffee 5 times because it keeps getting cold, trying to problem solve and make sure, So it's not, and I think we do kids a disservice when we harp on entrepreneur. We go from one extreme to the other. College or own your own business. Yeah. It's nothing wrong. So let me say this. I know we talked about school making good workers. It's nothing wrong with people working a 9 to 5.
No.
Let me say that.
If that's your thing.
If that is your thing and that makes you happy, be happy. But we have to talk about the realities of entrepreneurship. It's not as simplistic as sometimes the internet makes it out to be.
Oh, no.
But we don't talk about that. But now it's almost like I'm too far in to turn back.
Right.
Okay, I'm too far in.
But that's something you could certainly have a podcast, especially, because it's one more tab to open.
One more.
I get. But I mean, especially helping you promote your wares and what you do, because I believe that your service, your product is going to be a tremendous value. You've already got 7 years of testimonial building from the schools that you work with. I mean, I remember when I met you, you were coming in from the Bahamas, the Caribbean,
Virgin Islands,
and I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. That's sexy. I mean, it's like that's what entrepreneurship should look like. Or that's what, the people pretend to do on social media.
I was actually working when I came back in, though, Jim.
I know.
I had been working all week.
Yeah. You've got a purpose and a passion. I'm in full agreement with it. I love it. But I think there's definitely potential for you. And sometimes it's the simple explanation of how to scale is just that. Make an extra 5, hire somebody.
Yeah.
Make an extra 5, hire somebody. And just understand what role are they going to play? What are they going to do for you?
I think that's part of the, to be honest, another problem that I have is distinguishing, all right, if you have someone helping you, what can you let go of and be okay letting go? Because, you get used to doing certain things within your business. Yep. And then it's like, okay, can I trust this person with part of raising my baby part of the time? Right. So, yeah.
And that's... Yeah, you got to get around that.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things because it is like having another child. Yeah. A business. And
yes. A 7-year-old child. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's where we're at. 7 years old. We're almost 7.
And then when you have somebody, and going along the educational piece, finding that mentor who will come alongside you and say, okay, I see clearly on the outside of your bottle what you need to do. Yeah. I've been down this road. This is the kind of business that it is. It's recurring. It's got a subscription kind of feel to it. Let's go in this direction and build that out and get, you're not going after public dollars that the schools have to come up with, much like Hal Bowman had to do. Mm-hmm. He was fighting for that, professional development dollar. Mm-hmm. And I think that's being weaned down as well. Yeah. They're spending less and less on it.
It is. Well, you know what? That takes us into a whole nother conversation. Yeah, they really have. Once, the we call it COVID funds, the pandemic money has run out. Yep. Yeah, schools are being very intentional. So it's almost like I have to ensure that the messaging is right. So they recognize that, hey, I'm here to benefit your, school, your organization, but honestly, your students. When everybody else benefits, the ultimate recipient of all of that is the students.
Well, I mean, that goes back to a story that I had when my daughter was in 2nd grade or 1st, and she was doing these little things. And then back in that time, I was really saying, okay, how do you monetize this? Mm-hmm. What does that mean? So she was doing this thing for her friends. She was drawing these little pictures that they could insert in the back of their folders, trapper keepers, if you will. And she was like, oh, yeah, so-and-so asked me to do this, that. And I said, how much are you charging them? She was like, What do you mean charging them? I said, Charge like $2 or $3 to do it. Really? You think Cammie, all you can do is ask. What have I always told you kids? The unasked question, the answer is going to be no.
Always.
You're never going to know what the answer is. It's probably going to be no. But you got to ask at least, right? And she goes in there. She literally sold like 7 of them the next day. She made like $14. Good for you. The school came in and shut it down.
Illegal solicitation. Of course they did.
But that's BS. Come on. If she's got a bent for it, I could have been nurturing it this whole time. Instead, she was told that she was doing something wrong.
Yeah. No, I'm joking.
You know? But I mean, that's, and you know, that's where, we can't have them thinking independently, God forbid. Okay. And that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
You know, we all knew the kid in high school that somehow managed to get candy for pennies on the dollar and then sell it for a couple of bucks in school. I wish I did that.
You know what mine was?
What?
A kid used to sell Kool-Aid, sugar and Kool-Aid. And you remember when we used to just dip our fingers in Kool-Aid? Okay, so I had a high school classmate that would come with Ziploc bags full of Kool-Aid.
That's funny.
And was selling bags of Kool-Aid.
Oh,
so we're
that's
walking
funny.
around with red fingers, blue lips, because someone is selling Kool-Aid.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Good for them for doing that. I mean, and it's like, I understand that parents might get upset that my kid's, taking $2 to buy this thing from this other kid. Guys, understand the big picture of what's happening here. Why are you going to tell a kid not to do that? The whole country is based on this premise.
True.
Pursuit of happiness. All right?
True.
That means being able to go out and do your own thing.
Yeah.
Oh, man, it's crazy. Drove me absolutely. I'm like, this is why we are where we are.
And kids need to learn the value of money.
That's true.
So that also taught them the value of money and spending money on things that made them happy. But then not, saying that your daughter's drawings were not worth it. It is, my parents have given me $5 for the next 2 weeks. If I spend $2 on this drawing, will I have enough money for the next 10 days until I get so it's teaching them the value of some things. And I mean, just life lesson. Hey, that's life lesson right there. Real life lesson.
That's a lesson for the kid. You shouldn't spend money you don't have.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a lesson.
Yeah.
Cammie is, like I said, typically they're $3 on special for 2.
Yeah.
She goes, okay. So she would sell for some for 3, but sometimes for 2.
Yeah.
And it worked out. She made $15, $14 the next day. Like, dude, if you kept on going that, you would have over $1,000 in the bank by the time the end of the year. Easily. My son, he worked for me for a while, and it was a little bit of a lesson for him. He's now starting to come back around and realize, oh crap, I lost out.
Yeah.
But he made buco bucks with me.
Yeah.
Editing audio.
Oh.
And I said, dude, you know what I had to do when I was 15 years old? I was in a kitchen in a nursing home.
I worked at Wendy's.
$7.50 an hour.
I don't even think I made that $3.85.
I had a really good paying job.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well,
that was a highly desirable job to work at the Pope John Paul II Center for Healthcare.
Oh, okay. So you're bragging. So I worked at Wendy's for
I am
$3.
totally flexing right now.
Right.
Yeah.
My raise was 10 cents, and that was like a thing. Like, you got 10 cents. What? We were excited about 10 cents.
And the thing is that, whenever somebody tells me, even my kids, oh my gosh, you need to think bigger. Yeah. You got to think bigger, guy. All right. This is not something to celebrate. No.
Clearly, I would not celebrate that now. And you are. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Like I talk about limiting beliefs a lot. And it's almost like all of us could make 8 figures like your friend.
Yeah.
But where do our beliefs lie? And where did we learn those beliefs?
Is it possible?
Is it possible? Yes. The answer is yes. Yep. But who has either shut our big thinking down or encouraged it? Yeah. How often do we encourage kids to think big? I'm a big thinker. Yep. Okay.
I know.
So I'm a big thinker.
I
want to change the world.
I believe it.
Yeah.
And I think you will. It's just, a lot getting around the people that can help you with your business to change the world.
Yes. I agree.
Because you're there's the old adage of throwing the shells or the snails or the I think it was it clams or oysters. So the kid going along the beach, there was oysters up on the beach, and he was throwing. I can't save them all, but I can save this one. Mm-hmm. Right now, you're there, but you do have the potential to save a lot of people.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah, and I think a podcast could certainly help you in that.
Yeah.
Not that I'm trying to sell you a podcast.
I don't know, Jim. Are you trying to always tell me on the podcast.
The same guy, Brad Lee, and I'll leave off with this. I was visiting with him one time. He says, you know why people get rich?
Why?
Or become, vastly wealthy? It's because they ask the question, why?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just sitting there looking at him going, and he looks back at me, he goes, you're not asking me why. And I'm like, very true. I was just waiting for you to elaborate.
Uh-huh.
But I'm like, okay, why? But it's a powerful question, So your youngest, I guess he did that. So
he did. Why? Why am I here?
Why?
I thought this was supposed to be hard.
Right.
Why? And he was done after that semester.
So everything that you can find out about Erica is at lifechangesinprogress.com, right?
Yes.
Okay, check that out. Is all your offerings? Can people look at the supplement there as well?
No, it's not there yet, Jim.
Okay.
I just met with a web designer. Actually talked to her this morning about making it a little more consumer friendly, that it makes sense. We're finding that teachers get it right away, and that parents need a little more messaging to recognize how it can support them.
Are you aware of looking at other websites that you want it to look like and say, okay, just do that?
Yes. Okay. And as a matter of fact, I have a website, but I think it's too wordy. So of course, what do I read? I read a lot of, information because I love information, but everyone's not Erica. So I can be wordy. I taught reading in English. Mm-hmm. We're wordy people.
Yeah. Well, either way, to find and follow Erica and reach out and consult with her, go to Life Changes in Progress. You'll be able to find all things Erica here. Erica Battle. You need to tie in your last name to something too. You got a great last name.
Thank you.
That's a brand right there. So something to chew on. And of course, please, if you like what you're hearing, follow us and everything. Subscribe, share, rate, review. If you know somebody who might be interested, share it with them. What's Your Problem podcast.com. And we're going to call it an episode. Jim talking take 2. Erica, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.